travel light. Let us hunt.
Empyrean. Welcome back to Heroes and Whiskey. We are 3D printing our way through the D&D 5e Monster Manual, and today we are printing monster number 84, the Empyrean. So I have to admit that for the longest time, I was really not looking forward to this episode. The Empyrean is probably the least monster-looking monster in the manual, and I was not looking forward to wasting a ton of resin to print a giant Greek god with a bad haircut, but I ended up with one of my favorite prints so far, so let's take a walk down Empyrean Lane. Clinch Art has pretty much the only Empyrean on my mini factory that's true to the look in the manual. We printed their dryads a couple of episodes ago, and those turned out well, and so I paid my $18 and downloaded this guy, and I was getting him ready in my slicer, and I saw this really unusual geometry artifact. You can see this thin layer here, and I just had no confidence that it would print properly, and I didn't want to waste the 7 to 8 hours that a model of this size would take. But there's a problem in that there's no other Empyreans, and so I started looking at Greek gods. I found this Heracles from Heroes Infinite, only to discover that it's just a medium-sized figure. So then I relented and started searching giants, of which of course there are dozens. And then I finally found this coal giant from Lord of the Print, and I was like, okay, this guy could pass for an Empyrean, and he actually looks kind of badass. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of the base, which is a cart and a dead horse. Like, that didn't really seem right for an Empyrean, but I happen to still have the base from the Lord of the Print White Dragon that we tried to print in the last episode, and so I decided to give it a go. Of course, Empyreans are the literal children of God, so among the most powerful creatures you might encounter. I love the idea that their mood literally changes the surrounding environment, so that means you could have an Empyrean as like the underlying dynamic in a campaign, so maybe the party experiences unexpected changes in the environment and slowly realize that there's an Empyrean behind the scenes that they either need to ally with or destroy it to set things right. And as we've been doing lately, I turned the encounter description over to AI.
Standing before you is a magnificent being of divine origin, radiating an aura of grace and power, resembling a towering, perfectly sculpted humanoid adorned in radiant armor. In the celestial realms, where the fabric of reality weaves with threads of starlight and cosmic wonder, it moves with a majesty that commands awe, its presence a testament to the splendor of the heavens. Its eyes, like twin suns, shine with a wisdom that spans eons, reflecting the eternal dance of galaxies in their depths. As it becomes aware of your party, a celestial light intensifies around it, and it readies itself, lifting its mighty weapon imbued with the raw energy of creation, for a strike that resonates with the harmony of the spheres.
Okay, that's a little bit dramatic, but that's not bad. And I have to admit, this guy turned out fantastic, and as I said, he may be one of my favorite prints to date. I love the pose, I love the texturing, I love the detail. He's not necessarily poised for battle like I usually like, but he definitely is a presence on the table. He looks shockingly real, from the veins in his hands to his feet, which are, strangely, the most realistic-looking 3D feet that I've ever seen. And he printed pretty flawlessly. I'm really kind of ticked because this horn on his helmet originally extended about 2 more millimeters, and it came to the finest point, and of course I bumped it and it broke off. The seam placement is also a bit curious. You know, at the waist, they do what you expect and have the seam hidden behind the clothes, but both arms are cut pretty much straight across. There's this one here, and it's not even at like a natural joint, so that's a bit unusual for Lord of the Print, but otherwise it printed flawlessly. It had drain and curing holes in all the right places, so not surprisingly, it is a world-class design and a world-class figure from Lord of the Print. It also looks pretty good on this white dragon base. And he really is huge. I had to zoom back so far to fit him in the frame that my little studio basically became useless. He's just a massive and imposing figure. So in terms of resources, he only costs $13, which is actually a really good deal for a figure of this size and quality. Because of the way he was split up, it only took us about 12 and a half hours to print. So we are sitting at $838 spent in 38 days and 5 hours of print time. So if you need the child of a god and are okay with a slightly different look, check out this coal giant from Lord of the Print. He would probably make a pretty good coal giant too, actually. Next up, we're scaling it down to print the spider-loving Ettercap.